During a recent Oneg Shabbat, I was chatting with a couple. Despite everything happening in the world, she was surprisingly upbeat. He, on the other hand, was very pessimistic. I'm pretty sure he thinks that the Phillies are going to lose to the Dodgers, one of those guys. As we approach these days of awe, I was curious to know how each one was looking to the year ahead. What do you think the next few months will be like? I asked. The husband responded, Rabbi, what do you think? Don't you watch the news? Anti-Semitism is running rampant, free speech is under attack, and there is so much division within our community and country, it can't possibly get any worse. To which his optimistic wife replied, don't worry, honey, it can. Friends, let's be real. Times are tough. Many have lost their jobs this year or are uncertain whether they will still have them this time next year, original draft. We are concerned about rising incidents of anti-Semitism. We are concerned about rising incidents of anti-Semitism and its weaponization to confront other ills of society. We are deeply concerned and conflicted about what's happening in Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. We worry about ICE roundups and deportations, our daughters being able to access safe and legal reproductive health care, and our trans kids being safe, period. We worry about the direction that the United States and Israel are headed and our position in the world. This time last year, I thought, it can't get any worse. I should have been more optimistic. Yes, it can. Yet Judaism always demands that we maintain hope, even when it feels dark and desperate. We cling to hope. Earlier this summer, I posted a question on Facebook. I asked, what message do you need to hear these high holy days? One theme that emerged was that many of you are looking for an optimistic message. Week in, week out, we feel so defeated. We want to know how to move forward with some semblance of hope and positivity. And that's one reason why we're here today, to rediscover and renew our hope. We still need to believe that even when we feel crushed by the weight of the world and when so much feels bleak, together we can tip the scales towards goodness and justice. We search for that flickering light that emerges from the darkness. Paraphrasing the great Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, light is always there. We need to open our eyes to it. On Rosh Hashanah, I spoke about God observing that it is not good for a person to be alone. That was chapter 2 of Genesis. In chapter 1, before God created humankind, we see God's creative force at work. When God created the world, God separated light from the abyss of darkness. A first day, and it was good. This is one of the first lessons that the Torah teaches us. Darkness precedes light because despair is darkest before the dawn. It's easy to let bad news overwhelm us. And while we cannot shut our eyes to the calamities transpiring throughout our nation and the world, and even in our own lives, it's essential for our own mental health to take a break, to step back, and focus on something different, something positive in our lives. We must live in the moment more often than we choose to, and see life from someone else's perspective so that we can gain greater clarity of our own. This summer, Karen and I spent 2 weeks traveling through Kenya and Uganda. One of my best decisions was to limit my exposure to the news as much as possible. I paused my daily ritual of listening to podcasts that bring me up to speed with what is happening in Israel and the United States. I stopped reading the headlines. Even though one of our travel companions was glued to the news providing a morning update of the latest injustice, I reveled in living in partial ignorance for a short time, focusing on being present in the moment and deciding my outrage could wait. For those 2 weeks, I focused my attention on the creativity and hustle of Kenyans and Ugandans working to build better lives for themselves especially when they have so little to start with. I was in constant awe of the new and incredible, breathtaking experiences, whether on the savannah or in a remote village. I didn't need my joy and amazement to be dampened by what was happening elsewhere at the moment. Each day provided something new and miraculous to behold. Every morning we recite the Yotzer Or prayer, praising God for creating day and night. One of its verses is my North Star. Mechadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. God, renew in your goodness every day the works of your creation. Every day presents an opportunity for self-renewal, for experiencing moments of discovery, and for finding the good in the light, even when it seems so dark. 10 years ago in Baltimore, a black man named Freddie Gray died in the back of a police van while in custody. After a couple of weeks of peaceful protests, parts of the city erupted in violence. The images we saw were awful, and much of the national media shared a broadcast loop of a CVS engulfed in flames. Rabbi Daniel Katzenberg leads Beth Am Synagogue, located in West Baltimore's Reservoir Hill neighborhood. Beth Am still operates in what was once a large Jewish neighborhood, now predominantly black. Katzenberg writes, quote, "The day after the riots, my wife and I kept our kids home from school. We walked toward the neighborhoods to our west as hundreds of Baltimore residents stumbled out of their doors, clutching garbage bags and push brooms, resigned but determined to restore what we could of the shattered pieces of our city, repairing our corner of the world. The considerable cleanup on Tuesday morning, April 28th, eclipsed the rioting and looting that occurred on the night of April 27th. He continues, but the national media that swarmed a burning CVS the night before was nowhere to be found. If, as Dr. Martin Luther King said in 1967, riots are, quote, the language of the unheard, the next day community cleanups are the burden of the unseen. I can't imagine the despair he and Baltimore residents felt as they watched parts of their city burn. However, I can imagine the hopeful determination and resolve that Rabbi Katzenberg and his community and so many others felt when they came together the next morning to begin the lengthy process of healing and repair. This is the power of hope. When an individual or small group of people does something terrible, the loving, oftentimes overwhelming response from the community and its allies, often unseen, is often strong beyond measure. A few weeks ago, Congregation Or Shalom in the north suburbs of Chicago was vandalized with anti-Semitic graffiti. It startled and frightened the community. But rather than face this awful situation alone, the community found a way to come together. The congregation turned hate into love. As my friend Rabbi Ari Margolis observed, even in curses, there are opportunities to find blessings. He says it's been encouraging to know that he and his community are not facing hate alone. 300 people, including many from other faith traditions, showed up for Shabbat services the days after the attack. And it was that response that transformed a terrible moment into something special and hopeful. It's a lesson that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs teaches. When despondence deepens and all feels futile, hope remains active. Hope is the belief, Sachs says, that we can make things better. It takes courage to hope. We need this now more than ever. Our hope, however, needs to be incremental. It's what Israeli political psychologist Oded Leshem calls optimal hope, hope that needs to be realistic and even contained. Leshem teaches that, quote, our desires and expectations should be considered separately, lest they influence one another in harmful ways. In extreme conditions like malignant diseases or intractable conflict, optimal hope means that we can decrease our expectations, but keep our hopes propelled by our desires. In other words, he continues, the hoped-for goals of optimal hope may be more modest, at least incremental. If one wants to stay realistic, one might prefer advancing in small steps. Nevertheless, precisely because of its modesty, incremental nature, and cautiousness, optimal hope is more sustainable in the face of ongoing hardships. This past spring, I met with several folks for intentional one-to-one conversations. Part of these conversations included my very broad question, what keeps you up at night? People responded as you might expect. The state of our democracy, rising anti-Semitism, climate change, the eroding civil and human rights of vulnerable communities, political division, the coarseness of our conversations, and more. Being consumed by any one of these things, let alone all of them, is exhausting. It can paralyze us. Optimal hope teaches us to be modest in our expectations. It encourages taking small steps to address one small injustice at a time. If you are concerned about preserving our democracy, then work to elect people, especially locally, you know, who will protect what you value most. Reaffirm judges who interpret the law the way you do, based on the Constitution, not on a political agenda. Elect judges, school board members, and county officials who represent your values and priorities. Be hopeful while also being modest in your expectations. Rabbi Kalonymus Kalman Shapira, also known as the Piaseczner Rebbe, was the leader of the Warsaw Ghetto before he was killed by the Nazis in 1943. His seminal work called Eish Kodesh, Holy Fire, was recovered after the Holocaust. And it shows a remarkable evolution of theological thinking between 1939 and his death in 1943. Despite everything being stripped away from his people, synagogues, schools, food, shelter, dignity, and community, despite all that, he encouraged his followers, even during the worst of times, to maintain hope and faith in God. The Nazis could take away everything except one's mind and one's faith. Yes, he had enormous struggles and even his own crises of faith throughout those devastating years. But somehow, God only knows, he managed to maintain his hope. The Piaseczner has been a helpful guide for me. During challenging times that I face, especially now, I need only look at his lessons to remind myself that nobody can take away my faith in myself and in the possibility of a brighter future ahead. My struggles, our struggles, pale in comparison to the Piasezners. It's a lesson I need to remember when my situation seems uncertain. Rabbis like the Piaseczner and Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav remind us that hope is essential. Rabbi Nachman was a pious and joyful soul. He taught us the well-known text, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od. The entire world is a very narrow bridge. The essence is not to allow ourselves to be afraid. And yet, Rabbi Nachman also battled major clinical depression. Despite all that consumed him in the dangerous world in which he lived and in his own mind, he maintained hope. He didn't allow himself to get consumed by fear and despair. All this reminds me of the powerful lesson from our tradition. Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. Life may be complicated and overwhelming, but like the natural world around us, night turns to day, dark clouds pass, the sun comes out, and the light shines forth. Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. A hopeful mindset can propel us forward with determination and optimism. A few weeks ago, I also asked you on Facebook, what gives you hope? You said our beautiful world. You said music. For me, being in Africa among some of God's most amazing creatures was a great source of hope and joy and awe. And it put many things in perspective for me. Family, of course, gives us a lot of hope. Being with our children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews. For me, watching my young adult sons thrive on their college campuses as independent, intelligent, and thoughtful mensches gives me hope. And as one person I know who faced her share of health issues and family hardships recently remarked, tomorrow is a new day. And for all of us, making it to a new day means that we have once again emerged from the darkness. So what can we do? How do we let this light shine through? Get involved. Volunteer. Nurture your body, your mind, and your spirit. Get out in nature regularly. Meditate. Behold the beauty of the world around us. And above all, be gentle with yourself. You are not able to, I am not able to solve everything alone. But step by step, maybe we can make one piece of this world a little better. Remember the couple from the Oneg mentioned at the beginning of this sermon? Yes, things can get worse, but eventually they will get better. As Dr. King once said, only when the sky is darkest can the stars shine brightly through. My hope and prayer for all of you this year is that despite the pain, suffering, and trauma and bleakness that swirls around us, we're still able to find the light that shines within in our families, our friends, our communities. It may not be easy, but with diligence, strength, and positivity, we know that Gam Ze Ya'avor, this too shall pass, and brighter days will be ahead. Ken Yehi Ratzon.